Hi, everybody. This is Dave Stevens coming to you from Radio Row here in Tampa for Super Bowl 55. And yeah, it's me. But we have a new edict now where we have to wear our masks, at least for today, which is kind of a disappointing thing for my next guest because this lady is one of the most powerful golf professionals we've ever had on the LPGA Tour. And she's here with me. We haven't had a lot of guests that have joined me today, but joining me now, literally a few feet over across from me, is Jan Stephenson, a legendary golfer, 26 wins on the LPGA Tour. She's also in the World Golf Hall of Fame. And just so you little scratch golfers understand, she has 15 holes in one, 8 in competition, which I still think is tied for second on the tour. And we're going to talk about all her amazing stories, but I'm glad you're here in person. You're 5 feet away from me. And Jan, could you just let everybody see your face real quick? Just real quick before we get in trouble. That's the face that broke a lot of hearts in the 70s and 80s. And so there's a lot of us old timers out there that are very excited that you're here with me, Jan. So you live here, so thanks for coming on down.
Thank you, Dave. It's pretty easy. Just a little drive down. It just is so different. It's like a ghost town compared to other Super Bowls. I've been fortunate to have been to some Super Bowls with some of my past sponsors when they've been, part of it. And this is kind of disappointing. I really thought Florida would still be pretty open. And I know I live here, and it's usually fairly open.
Now, I want to talk about your career. Obviously, 26 wins, like I said, 3 PGA titles, LPGA titles. Is there one, that first one in 76, I mean, one of those that really sticks out as your moment in the sun?
It's probably winning the U.S. Open. I've won 3 majors here, and the first one was great to break through. I was having a wonderful year in '81. But when I was about 13, my father actually worked for the government in the transport department, and he actually had requested night shifts so he could take me to practice before school and after school. And one day, because our season for golf is in the wintertime, which is, June, July, August in Australia. And it was like a really cold, windy August. And my mom was like, you got to get up. Your dad will be home from work soon so you can go practice. And it's like, it was miserable. I'll never forget that day. It was cold and windy. And I heard him come in, and I heard him talking to my mom. So they both came and sat on my bed, and my father brought me a hot water bottle. I don't know if you remember what they are, but
Yeah.
You put hot water in this plastic bottle, rubber bottle, and you stick it at your feet. And he goes, he's warmed my feet up, and he goes, these are the type of days when you don't want to practice, when it is horrible. That kind of drive is what's going to win you a U.S. Open. And so I was like, oh, Dad, don't put that on me. So I did get up, and I remember I practiced in miserable weather, and I still hate cold, rainy weather because, in Australia, we don't get that many days. It's kind of like Florida, but I did it. And then so when I won the Open, my parents were there. And so it was like a very emotional thing that, my father said, I don't even know if you'll remember me saying that. And I was like, of course I do. It was a goal that dragged me through quite a lot of bad weather and things that were not going well. So winning that and having them there was a very emotional thing.
That's great. And like I said, it's tough to put you on the spot and pick that one, but what a moment that must have been. And, your career, you were one of the pioneers in a different realm as far as actually bringing beauty and sex to a tour and a female sport that they hadn't had, like an elegance and a grace. And I'll throw this up, and there's going to be a lot of old guys out there that are going to remember, kind of like you became a spokesman, a role model, a cover girl, like, all kinds of controversy. Should there be sex in sport and things like that? I mean, what kind of pressure was like that? Did you want that?
Well, no, I really wanted to just play golf, but the new commissioner at the time, it was 1975, he came on board, and he was the commissioner from the NHL, and so he had hired a PR firm and moved the headquarters from the LPGA from Georgia up to New York in Manhattan, and said, this is where you need to be, where all the sponsors are. And he just wanted something different. So I had just won a tournament. And he said, this is what we want, someone that they can't say it's just for her look. She can actually play. So he had me fly to New York and said, we want to basically make you the new image of the LPGA. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he goes, well, it's a lot of work that you're going to be doing for free, but it's also going to make you quite famous, and in those days, the TVQ, which I never knew what that meant back then. But he said it's going to put you on the map, but it's also going to really help the LPGA. And so they started a magazine that went in all of our programs every week, and it was obviously we were, the first one they had me laying on a bed in a nightgown, and of course that caused a huge controversy. And so after that, it just became the norm. And then and I would go fly into New York and fly and meet with potential sponsors, and we'd sign 10-year contracts. And the commissioner kept saying, that's just going to put you in the Hall of Fame because they're really going to appreciate what you've done. But as the years went by, and that kind of went away because people didn't know what I'd done. And then I got worried that because I had spent so much time doing that and not enough, I think, playing golf. I mean, everybody says, what do you regret? And I think if I'd have said no, I wonder how many tournaments I really could have won. But then the LPGA wouldn't be where it is today.
So, I mean, in a way, your success for the the tour kind of detracted from what you had to go through. And I know at that time the competition with Nancy Lopez and Annika Sorenstam and all these people that you have competed against, they didn't really have to have that pressure. So at one point you are like this tabloid sensation and you're associated with everybody dating all the stars and things like that. I mean, is there a pressure, for you to live up to these expectations as a sex symbol or something like that?
There were certainly back then. I mean, I know there was a lot of pushback from the players saying, we've been trying to make this women's lib thing go, and that was really brand new. And then you're setting everybody back by having to do this sex appeal stuff. But the commissioner kept trying to say to the players, we'd have meetings and they would be saying, why are we doing this? Why can't we just have the merits of how we play? But he explained that, this is an organization that was really struggling, and we just need media and we need people to pay attention to how good you can play. And he said, I'm really helping because I want everyone to see the talent that's here. But if Jan is prepared to do it and we use her to get people there, he said, you really should be thanking her and not mad at her.
Did you get animosity from your female golfer colleagues just because jealousy and that nobody likes success? People hate Tom Brady for winning, and you had looks and success. So I imagine some of those clubhouses could be a little tough.
That's a good way to put it. In fact, you always knew they were talking about you, and because you'd walk into the locker room and there'd be dead silence, and so you knew it was over. There'd be some people that obviously were on my side. I mean, it was actually cute. We had Joanne Connor, who was Big Mama. They interviewed her and said, don't you think this is taking away from how well the players are, they can play? And she said, no, if I look like her, I'd be wearing that too. So we actually, as a joke, when I heard that, we had a life-size picture of me made, and we put Joanne's head on it, and we used to carry it to tournaments and go, there you go, Joanne. And she had a great attitude about it.
Well, I don't usually ambush and put people on the spot, but there's a rumor that there was a very famous person at the time named Donald Trump who was trying to pursue you and date you, and was so, I don't know if you had to sign a non-disclosure or anything, but could you take us through that crazy scenario? We're not going to talk politics. I just want to know at the time when somebody thinks they can do something, what that must have been like.
Well, it was a pretty crazy time. I mean, if you think about now with social media, I'd be, somebody said you'd be more than a Kardashian. It'd be so famous.
Absolutely.
But, what the commissioner also wanted me to be seen with a lot of celebrities. So every time we'd play a different tournament, I would be either, maybe at batting practice with Johnny Bench and then seen later, or, with Steve Bartkowski at quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. So it was actually a very fun time meeting all these great celebrities. And I did get a letter from Donald Trump at the time asking if I would represent one of his sponsors who was building a casino, was from one of the Arab countries. And so would I fly to New York? And I was like, I asked the commissioner about it. He goes, and he lived in Manhattan. He's like, definitely, Donald Trump is a big name. You need to come to New York. So I flew to New York and had dinner with him. And he wanted me to represent his company. And so I would see him and play golf with him when I was in New York. And that we kind of he was pretty honest about it, because he had said, I want someone that's a great athlete, that's not just looks, because everywhere we went, the girls would be hitting on him all the time in New York because of who he was. So the one time he said, I think your golf is more important than a relationship. And I said, well, it definitely is right now, because my family have sacrificed so much, and my whole life has been spent on trying to win, that I really don't want a personal relationship. And he said, well, just come to dinner with me. And I was playing Atlanta at the time. And I said, well, if you come early, because I have an early tea time tomorrow. So I met him at Peachtree DeKalb, drove the car up to his plane, and he didn't get out. So the captain came out and said, would you come up to the plane? So I went up there, and the whole plane was full of red roses. And the one seat was open with an envelope and one rose, and it was asking me to go to dinner in this French restaurant. And I said to the captain, well, where is this French restaurant? And they said, it's in Paris. And I'm like, what? And I said, well, this plane won't get to Paris. He said, no, we have a plane waiting in New York, and he wants to take you to dinner in Paris. And I actually took the rose in the envelope, and I said, sorry, but I've got an 8:30 tea time, and I left it. And so after that, he said, you pretty much made your mind up what you wanted to do.
Wow. I'm sure there's no regrets, right? You would have been like one of 5 or 6 wives by now.
Well, actually, I played with him later. A few years. Well, we stayed in close contact. I mean, I met Marla and Melania. So we stayed in contact over the years, but for a while there, I haven't talked to him since, for the last probably 10 years. And he was really a golf nut. And one of his people had said, do you regret it? And I said, no, I would never have won a U.S. Open. And that kind of got him, because that would be something he would love to do.
Wow. What a great story. Many people don't really know like that. Didn't know. I always thought they just made it up,
quiet. Yeah, since especially since he was the president.
Do you ever, in your repertoire, ever want to write a tell-all book, or how your feelings were, or anything like the trials and tribulations that you went through on the tour?
Yeah, we've talked about it. I mean, I just haven't had a lot of time right now, but we were very close. We've actually done a movie with it, and Margot Robbie's company had Lucky Chap had bought the rights, but that is now run out. So we're looking at, because there's so much that's happened in my life, even since leaving the tour, that things I'm involved with, and that I think the latest one is that there's an Australian company that wants to do a series, like a Netflix series. So I'll probably do that before I'll ever do a book.
Wow. And of course, I got to talk about what you're doing now. You've got Superior Wine and Spirits. You've created wines. You are well known for your wine and everything. 1, how did you get into that? And 2, how is it going for you?
Well, yeah, it was actually funny, because I had a winery, and now I have a private label, but it was one of those things where every time I travel around, my winemaker's from Australia, and he's a superstar from back there, and I brought him to California. And we were doing really well, but it was so hard, because I had to travel around the country to get distributors. And by the time you get a distributor and then license a product in that state, it just seemed like it was so much work, and I was spinning my wheels. And then I realized the distributor's making more than I am. So I went, no, wait a minute, I want to be on that side of it. So I bought a distributorship. So now I actually distribute a lot of products, and have, here in Florida. And I have still have a private label with my spirits. I have a really good distillery out of Utah. And so it's way more fun to be just staying in one place for a change, especially since the senior tour, we didn't play any tournaments last year. The Legends Tour just canceled everything. So thankfully I had this to fall back on.
Well, you're multi-talented. I would be remiss if I didn't show some of the old timers out there. I'm showing you when you were on Dancing with the Stars in Australia. There you are in your red dress with all your group and celebrities and everything. What was that experience like? I mean, did you ever think yourself of being a dancer and not embarrassing yourself, but it's not your comfort zone. I know it's not.
Definitely not. I didn't even know how to dance, but my mother was a dancer. And so she was always regretted that I chose a sport and not dancing. So it was always something I promised her I would do. So while she was alive, I got a chance to. Actually, I was going to go back home and be in politics in Australia. I still hadn't decided whether I was going to get my citizenship here. So I went back to Australia, and the media said, well, they need to know that you're back home. So they put me on Dancing with the Stars, and kind of threw me in there. And it was definitely experience, but it's hard work, and I had to try to still come back and forwards. I was playing a couple of seniors events, and it was really a lot of work. And of course I was terrible because I was so I'm so competitive that when they voted me out, which I didn't think they should, I thought I was way better than that. I just burst out crying, and I had brought in Olivia Newton-John to be a guest judge that night, so I was horrified.
Just Olivia Newton-John, name dropper.
But I was horrified, so I was crying so hard, and everybody, and the producers, everybody's yelling, "She's ruining the show! Just make her stop!" So I didn't. And then, of course, the headlines in all of our papers the next day was "sore loser." So I could not take.
You can't
it,
win.
So, no,
you can't win. But you have won 26 times on the PGA Tour. Hall of Fame golfer Jan Stephenson is joining us. Thank you. And you got to see her face. It is her face. Give them one more sneak peek right here. This is us. That's a face that has sold millions and millions of products and broke a lot of hearts and a lot of posters and all kinds of stuff back in the day, a Teen Beat and all those kind of things. But, you talk about 15 holes in one, 8 in competition. For somebody that's not a very good golfer, to get 15 of those, I mean, what is that like when you got your first, but to continue to be able to do it? It's not a fluke when you're doing it.
Well, getting a hole in one is actually, it's hard when you play in a tournament because you're trying to kind of stay even keel, and you're so excited. And back in the days when I was making them, we were sponsored by Mazda. And so every time you got a hole in one, they gave you a car. So I got 3 in 1 year. So I traded all 3 in on a Porsche because I didn't want 3 Mazdas. And the Porsche Mazda dealer let me trade them in. Which is fun. I mean, now we get kind of neat stuff, but not cars anymore.
I bet they don't talk about that on The Price is Right, but I bet there were a lot of taxes on those things too, right?
Yeah, that's the trouble. And it really isn't as, by the time you pay for it, you could have probably just bought one. But it's definitely exciting. I still get goosebumps when I think of some of the ones I've done, but it's hard because everybody can hear the yells and screams because of the galleries were so big for me back then.
And you think it's another golfer possibly or something, right?
Yeah. And so then once they hear that it's you and it put it on the scoreboard, the one, it's hard to just make a par on the next hole because you're trying to calm down. You're like, well, I don't want to make a bogey because then you've just taken that all away. So it's really hard to focus because everybody's congratulating you as you go. And so that's the down part, but it is pretty fun to see it go in the hole.
Hall of Fame golfer Jan Stephenson joining me here live in Radio Row. We haven't had many of these. It's been virtual most of the day, but just wanted to thank a big shout out to the Disability Channel for getting us in here. Of course, we've been here. This is our 4th Super Bowl. And don't forget, abilitymedia.com. That's the new endeavor I'm doing with Quinnipiac University, where we're going to make changes and really hope get people out there in the world with opportunities that they don't have. And Ali Plus TV, which for a guy 55 and me and over, it's a new channel where I get to be hosting Boomer Connection, Rock Bottom and Back, and some great programming for us old people. But I'm going to get back to Jen here as we wrap up. And again, I appreciate you coming down here. I know we've wanted to meet each other for a few years, and it was nice to have Chris come down. You do a lot of good things, though, and let's just talk about that. And don't be embarrassed to gush about what you're doing because it does make an impact with the veterans and all that. So tell us about your philanthropic endeavors that you do.
Well, I've always had a charity for the disabled vets, but we had a chance to buy a golf course for my foundation. So it's called the Jan Stephenson Crossroads Foundation, and we bought Tarpon Woods Golf Course in Palm Harbor, and it's really been fun because I've done a lot with special ops. Once we had the Warrior Games here last year, I got really involved, and they asked me if I would train the special ops team for the Warrior Games, and then I had to actually assess all the teams coming in from around the world on which tees they would play and how to handicap it. So I got so involved with it. Rondé Barber and I both did. So we got to do the opening tee times. We announced the times for the tournament. So it was really fun. And then the actual special ops asked me if I would come with them and because I was their coach. And walk with them when we had the opening games, and so it was really an honor. And they are such amazing. It's just like you. The attitude is so incredible that, and you know what I really noticed about it was more the camaraderie that they all have together. You know, like when we're playing golf with them, and if one of them gets upset and has a bad day, everybody rallies around them, and you know you don't really see that in other sports, especially in golf, because you know it's such an individual sport, but they really treated it like a team sport, and I learned so much from them. So anyway, now still I have once a month I do a clinic, and the disabled vets come out and first responders, and I give them a clinic, and then they go out to play. And if they like the game, and because they've shown that golf is really good for people like that have come from from combat, and they really struggle. They're saying that being outside and playing against the golf course rather than having to compete, because it's so hard to level it. That was the hardest part I had, is how do you level them all? But if they're playing against themselves, it was much easier to do. And so if they like it and they come back, which seems like most of them have, we then give them a set of golf clubs to get out
Oh,
there and
wow.
play. So
That's
it's
awesome.
been fun to do that, and it I get goosebumps because their attitude is so good.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that again for all the people that served. I work with BJ Ganem, a lot of people here locally who you just met, and we can't do enough for those guys. They have paid the ultimate price, those
Yeah.
that didn't come back, so we need to continue to help them. We can't just give it up, because there's so many suicides, especially with COVID and the depression, and they can't be around people. And we talked about that with the senior tour for you, for the ladies, and you know, you didn't really get to play. So what's going to happen in the future, and are you ready to get back out there?
I am. We've actually just had a few more tournaments canceled this year, so we really won't play in a competitive event until June. So, you know, the thing is, luckily I've got plenty to do. But I was talking to my coach. He came over the other day from Orlando, and he's like, you know, you just can't stop and then expect to be able to come back and compete. So, I'm actually going to get back into it because I miss the competition, and definitely there's something about it. And seeing all my, you know, my peers again, you know, Lopez and all the players that we played against, they're great personalities, and I'm looking forward to that.
And of course, you're in great shape for your age. I mean, we can say how old you are.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't,
I
you
know.
know.
I'm old.
And as far as what COVID has done, you know, and hopefully we get back to normal. My question is, and again, I've been in the TV business for a while, so it's my perception, but women's golf seemed to be in its heyday in the 70s and 80s. And I'm not saying that they're not better golfers today. It's a more competitive thing. But what's it going to take to get that back? When you had those matchups with Nancy and you and all of the legend, Big Mama, you
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about that. We don't have that following. We didn't get it. You know, we had Annika Sorensen for a while, but we don't really have, because of the great amount of foreign golfers. And I know you've gotten in trouble a couple of times by being misinterpreted on things, but it's my, like, what can we do to get the LPGA back where it was? Or is it just there's too many females playing golf now, so it's not that big of a deal to have these special ones out there?
Well, there's no question that we had an era of fantastic personalities. You know, we had Patty Sheehan and Pat Bradley and Beth Daniel, and you know, I mean, there's so many, Judy Rankin, and there's so many Hall of Famers that we had that could really play. So, they were all different personalities, and so the media, we had so much media exposure that everybody knew and had their own kind of fans. But nowadays, because it is such an international tour, a lot of Americans don't know who they are. Now, if they go to Asia, they're superstars and they get huge galleries. But I think what's going to happen is we have to have some American names that people can compete with. Because when I first came over, we only had two international players. We had Chako Higuchi and Sally Little from South Africa and Chako from Japan. So I was only the third international player. And there were so many people going against it, that with so many Americans that could really play, until we get more Lexi Thompsons out there that can compete with it. I think it's the competition of world versus
Right.
America that everybody loves.
And it's not a knock against. You're saying that because there is so much competitive. It's like we're not a world power in soccer at the male level. because we don't have that youth coming up and coming. So it's like it's almost the same thing. We need that resurgence of the golfers, for American side to get back up to shine on the national level, because they're all coming over here and winning our tournaments and then going and win the European tournaments. And again, it's not about a knock about it's just we need to do a better job. We need to get those opportunities for the youth and the girls and everybody to get our golf.
Actually, Dave, that's an excellent idea, because what's happened, and that's a good point, because if you go international, which is what I was trying to point out years ago, was that when you go over there, the governments really support women's golf and put a lot of money into investing in them that we don't do over here. I mean, really, First Tee has helped, but it's more about teaching them the game as far as integrity reasons and not to be on tour. Where in Asia and in Australia and in Europe, we have the Institute of Sport in Australia, and they put a lot of effort and money into really helping juniors. Not over here, it's more about if you can afford it,
right?
And that makes it hard.
Well, it's been great talking to you, and as we wrap up our thing, there's so many things I wanted to ask, but I just wanted to do the one thing, and let's just take us back to your Hall of Fame induction. This little girl, ragtag girl from Australia, just probably hitting a lot of golf balls and sand dunes and things out there in the outback and everything. I mean, what was that moment like for you? And you got to share it with so many stars, Jack Nicklaus and all those kind of people. I mean, was that the epitome of your career? You're not dead, but take us through that moment at that induction.
Yeah, you're right. That was probably every time they say, why haven't you written a book? Why aren't you finished with the movie? Is because that was the last thing I really wanted. And I was afraid, like we talked about earlier, that I had kind of let that go by doing so much media and promotion. And it was once they came back and redid all the rules, they recognized all my international wins as well. So then I qualified. Because I was an international player, and so that helped. But these were the most Hall of Famers attended that event that were alive. So it was really incredible to see so many superstars there. And it was at Pebble Beach, which is pretty amazing.
And your manager had better seats than Jack, right? I saw that photo of Jack,
He was in the second row, right? And so that was fun because my family were in the first row. But that was the thing that I really, really wanted and was afraid I may have lost. So it was very special for me.
Well, Jan, it's truly has been an honor and a privilege to get to know you, social media wise, finally meet you in person, and just kind of take a walk down memory lane as far as some of the amazing things. And again, the controversies and the things you didn't ask for, that light continues to shine bright. And it's like, I'm sorry that we're 6 feet away. I would hug you and thank you very much for being on the show. But, them's the breaks here at this Super Bowl Tampa. Any parting thoughts or anything you want to say out to your fans and people out there that wondering what you're doing and how you're holding up?
Well, I love staying in contact with you. I mean, you're amazing too, and I just love everything that you've done. And of course, I talk about all the time. Your attitude is incredible.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us on Radio Row. And again, where can they buy the Superior Wine and Spirits? Is it online? I know sometimes you can't ship to certain states and stuff, but where can they find these delicious libations?
Well, Total Wine has all of my spirits. They have the Jan Stephenson line, which is a fabulous distillery out of Utah, which has really good water. And that was actually fun for me because I didn't want to have artificial flavors in it. So we brought the passion fruit from Australia and the pineapple from Florida and the mangoes. So everything in mine is actually real fruit.
All right. Well, this is Dave Stevens from Radio Row, and literally Jan is literally sitting right there. There she is, right there she is with our setup. So again, this is a whole different world that we're in. But again, I really appreciate you and Chris coming down today, and you'll be around Radio Row talking about your legendary life. So this is Dave Stevens. Jan, thank you again for being a part of the show today. I so appreciate you stopping by, and again, you didn't have to, so that really means a lot. So Dave Stevens here at Radio Row, wrapping it up. We have Lee Steinberg coming up later today. I can't get Patrick Mahomes. He's a little busy, but I thought I'd go right to the source, his agent to his agent. We'll talk about him being the broadcast version of Jerry Maguire because that movie was based on him. So Dave Stevens at Radio Row. Again, thank you everybody from the Disability Channel, www.disabilitychannel.ca. Hey, you want to see me on Ali Plus, us old guys? Well, that's the channel that you want to watch. We'll tell you how to improve your life and give you a new start. So continue to go to aliplus.com. And hey, If you're young and you want to learn how to do television, check out Quinnipiac University, because we have Ability Media starting up. This old guy is going to teach some of you young kids how to do these things. So again, continued success out there, everybody. This is Dave Stevens from Radio Row, wrapping it up for the morning part of what we're doing. Stay safe, stay good, and of course, love everybody and do something nice for somebody today. We'll see you.